I discovered my wife's secret apartment through a forgotten utility bill notice. It's funny, or maybe it's not, how the mundane can unravel the monumental. A piece of paper, shoved behind a pile of junk mail on the kitchen counter, a bill for water and sewer service addressed to a P.O. box I didn't recognize. That's all it took. I almost tossed it, another piece of adulting I didn't want to deal with, but something snagged me. The amount was higher than I expected, and the frequency of billing was unusual. We'd been in this house for 5 years, a nice little rancher in a decent suburb, nothing fancy but comfortable. We'd built a life here, or so I thought. My wife, Sarah, she was everything. The kind of woman you see in movies and think, yeah, right. But she was real. My Sarah. Laughter lines around her eyes, the way she'd hum off-key when she was happy, the fierceness she had when she defended me to her parents, who never quite approved of me. She was the anchor, and I was the idiot who didn't see the iceberg until it was too late. Seriously though, if you're finding yourself hooked by this, if this story is getting under your skin the way it's getting under mine, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell so you don't miss the next part. Share this with anyone you think might connect with it, and drop a comment below. Let me know what you think is going to happen. Your engagement means everything. It really does. It's what keeps me going, honestly, sharing this stuff. So, this utility bill, I remember the exact date too. It was a Tuesday, a miserable, drizzly October afternoon. I'd just gotten home from work, the usual grind. Project manager at a construction firm, long hours, lots of stress, but I liked it. Building things, seeing them rise from the ground. It felt important, tangible. Sarah worked part-time at a gallery downtown, something she was passionate about, art. She'd always been artistic, talented. I'd always encouraged her. She'd talk about a new artist, her eyes would light up, and I'd just smile, happy to see her so alive. We didn't have kids yet. We talked about it, planned for it, but always felt like there was a later. Later for the mortgage, later for the second car, later for the family. Turns out, later might have been a placeholder for never. I picked up the bill, intending to shred it. The P.O. box number was in bold, stark against the plain white paper. P.O. Box 742, Eastgate Station. Eastgate. I knew Eastgate. It was a commercial area, mostly strip malls and office buildings, about 20 minutes from our house. But a P.O. box? Why would Sarah have a P.O. box? We got all our mail at home. I remember feeling a prickle of something I couldn't quite name. Annoyance? Curiosity? It wasn't a huge thing, not on its own. People have P.O. boxes for all sorts of reasons. Business, privacy, whatever. But it was just odd. Sarah was an open book, or at least I thought she was. Her phone was always on the counter. Her laptop never locked. We shared everything. Or so I told myself. I walked into the kitchen, the bills still in my hand. Sarah was at the table, sketching in her notebook, her brow furrowed in concentration. The afternoon sun, weak as it was, cast a soft glow on her dark hair. She looked up, her expression shifting from intense focus to a warm smile. "Hey you," she said, her voice like honey. "Rough day?" I shrugged, tossing the bill onto the counter. "Just another Tuesday." "What's this?" I tapped the bill. She glanced at it, then back at her sketch pad. "Oh, that. Just some junk mail, probably." "It's a utility bill," I said, my voice a little sharper than I intended, "for a P.O. box in Eastgate." She paused, her pencil hovering over the paper. Her smile faltered, just for a second, then came back, a little tighter. "Oh, right, that. It's for a little side project I'm working on. Just some art supplies I'm ordering. It's easier to have them delivered there, less chance of them getting lost." Her explanation was smooth, plausible. Too plausible? My brain, a creature of habit and logic, tried to fit it into the narrative of our life. Art supplies. Makes sense. She was always ordering things for her art. But the P.O. box. It still felt like a loose thread. I pushed it aside. Sarah wasn't a liar, not about anything important anyway. We had built a life on trust, on years of shared confidences, late-night talks, and comfortable silences. I loved her. I really did. I loved the way she'd tuck her hair behind her ear when she was thinking, the way she'd wrinkle her nose when she was amused, the way she smelled like vanilla and old books. I went to change, peeling off my damp shirt. The house was quiet, filled with the usual comforting sounds of our life, the refrigerator humming, the occasional creak of the floorboards. Sarah went back to her sketching. I found myself replaying her words, her slight hesitation. a little side project. It wasn't like her to keep things from me, especially something that involved ordering supplies. Usually, it was all a big production, showing me what she'd bought, asking my opinion on colors or mediums. This felt secretive. Later that week, I was cleaning out the garage. It was a mess, a testament to years of accumulated junk we'd meant to sort through. Old paint cans, dusty boxes, a broken lawnmower. I stumbled upon a small, nondescript envelope tucked away in a forgotten toolbox. It was addressed to Sarah, no return address, just her name and our home address. Inside, a single sheet of paper. It wasn't a bill this time, but a receipt. A receipt for a storage unit, Unit B47, at a facility just outside of Eastgate. My gut twisted. Storage unit? We didn't have anything that needed storing. Our house was full but not overflowing. We weren't hoarders. And again, Eastgate. The proximity was too much of a coincidence. My mind started to race, piecing together these seemingly insignificant fragments. The P.O. box, the storage unit, the vague explanation. It felt like a puzzle, and the picture it was forming was one I didn't want to see. I drove out there that Saturday morning, a cool, crisp autumn day. The storage facility was a sprawling complex of gray metal boxes, all identical, all anonymous. Unit B47. I stood in front of the metal door, my heart pounding in my chest. What was I expecting? To find Sarah's secret art studio? Or something else entirely? My hands were shaking as I reached for the padlock. It wasn't locked. That was the first strange thing. I pulled the heavy door open. The air inside was stale, carrying a faint scent of something I couldn't quite place. Dust, yes, but something else. Perfume? Not Sarah's usual scent. It was floral, but cloying. The unit was small, much smaller than I'd imagined. It wasn't filled with canvases or art supplies. Instead, it was furnished. A small, comfortable armchair, a side table with a lamp, a few decorative pillows. On the side table, a framed photograph. My blood ran cold. It was a picture of Sarah, but she wasn't smiling her usual radiant smile. She looked different, younger somehow. And next to her, a man I'd never seen before. He had his arm around her, and they were both laughing. It was an intimate photo, the kind you only take with someone you're incredibly close to. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. This wasn't an art studio. This was a sanctuary, a place Sarah went to, alone, with someone else. The receipt, the P.O. box, the carefully vague answers, it all clicked into place with a sickening finality. I sank onto the dusty armchair, the springs groaning under my weight. The air felt thick, suffocating. I looked around the small space, trying to make sense of it, trying to find a reason, an explanation that didn't involve the unthinkable. There was a small locked wooden box on the floor near the armchair. My fingers itched to open it, but I just knew that whatever was inside would confirm my deepest fears. I stood up, my legs feeling wobbly. I had to get out of there. I closed the heavy metal door, the sound echoing in the silent complex. As I walked back to my car, the world seemed to tilt on its axis. Everything I thought I knew, everything I believed about Sarah, about us, was shattered. The drizzle had started again, a fine mist that clung to my face, blurring my vision. I drove home on autopilot, my mind a chaotic storm of guilt, anger, and a profound, crushing sadness. I saw her face in my mind, that happy, open face I'd loved so fiercely. Was it all a lie? The laughter, the shared dreams, the promises? I pulled into our driveway, the familiar street now looking alien, tainted. The house, our home, felt like a stage set, a beautiful facade hiding a rotten core. I walked inside, the silence deafening. Sarah was in the living room, curled up on the sofa, reading. She looked up, her smile bright, innocent. "Hey, you," she said, her voice warm, welcoming. "How was your weekend?" I couldn't speak. The words choked in my throat. I just stared at her, this woman I thought I knew better than anyone in the world, and saw a stranger with a secret apartment and a hidden life. The guilt I felt was immense, a cold, heavy weight in my chest. Had I missed the signs? Had I been too naive, too trusting? Or had she been that good at hiding it? The anger started to simmer, a slow burn beneath the surface of my shock. Anger at her for the betrayal, for the deception, and anger at myself for being so blind. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time I saw the cracks, the subtle shifts in her expression, the moments of evasiveness I dismissed as nothing. The memory of the photograph in the storage unit flashed behind my eyes. Sarah and the unknown man, their shared laughter, a cruel echo in the hollow space in my heart. I took a breath, a deep, shaky one. I knew I had to ask, I had to know, but the words felt too heavy to lift, too dangerous to utter. I just stood there, caught in the suffocating silence, the unspoken accusation hanging between us like a guillotine. The faint, cloying scent of perfume, the one I'd smelled in the storage unit, seemed to linger in the air, a ghostly reminder of the truth I was about to confront. And the worst part? I hadn't even opened the wooden box. What if that held something even worse? What if the story was far from over? The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Sarah's smile, once a beacon, now felt like a mask, and the warmth in her eyes seemed to falter under my stare. She tilted her head, a slight frown creasing her brow. "Everything okay?" she asked, her voice softer now, laced with a hint of concern that felt manufactured, a performance. I swallowed, my throat dry. The photograph, the armchair, the locked box, the pieces were all there, stark and brutal, and I couldn't unsee them. I couldn't unknow. The weight of it pressed down on me, a physical force. "Sarah," I started, my voice rough, unfamiliar even to myself. "Who is Mark?" The question hung in the air, sharp and unexpected. Her eyes widened, a flicker of something unreadable crossing them. Fear, surprise, guilt. It was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by that practiced, serene expression. "Mark," she repeated, her brow furrowed as with genuinely trying to recall. I don't know any Mark." Her denial was too quick, too absolute. It was a wall slamming shut, an immediate, practiced deflection. The anger, which had been a slow simmer, flared into a sudden, searing heat. "Don't lie to me, Sarah," I said, my voice rising, the control I tried to maintain slipping away. "Don't you dare lie to me." Her expression shifted, the mask cracking. A hint of defensiveness entered her tone. "What are you talking about? Why are you yelling at me? I haven't lied to you about anything." "Oh, really?" I took a step towards her, my hands clenching into fists. "What about the P.O. box? What about the storage unit? What about the picture, Sarah? The picture of you and him laughing? Who the hell is Mark?" Her face paled. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape route. The composure she usually exuded, the effortless grace, had vanished, replaced by a raw, exposed vulnerability that was almost more terrifying than her deceit. You went into my storage unit?" Her voice was barely a whisper, laced with accusation. "I found the receipt," I spat back, my voice raw, "in the garage, just like I found the bill for the P.O. box you told me was for art supplies. You think I'm an idiot, Sarah? You think I wouldn't put it together?" The confession I was forced to extract from myself, the act of snooping, felt like another layer of dirt on my already soiled soul. But her betrayal was a gaping wound, and I was desperate for anything to cauterize it. She stood up slowly, her legs trembling. The book slipped from her lap and landed on the floor with a soft thud. She looked smaller, more fragile than I had ever seen her. It's complicated," she finally managed, her gaze fixed on some point beyond my shoulder. "Complicated?" The word was a bitter laugh. "You have a secret apartment, Sarah. A place where you go to be with another man? What part of that is complicated? It's cheating, plain and simple." The word felt like a physical blow, both to her and to myself. Tears welled up in her eyes, her lower lip trembling. It's not like that," she whispered, the denial losing its conviction with every word. "Not anymore." "Not anymore?" The rage surged again. "So it was like that. When was it, Sarah? When were you sneaking off to your little hideaway with him? Was it last week? Last month? Was it when you said you were working late at the gallery? Was it when you went to that art conference in Chicago? I was here, Sarah. I was waiting for you. I was making dinner. I was loving you." The accusation ripped from my throat, fueled by years of perceived devotion and the crushing reality of its hollowness.
She finally looked at me, her eyes red-rimmed and pleading. "Please, let me explain." "Explain what?" I demanded, my voice cracking. "Explain how you looked me in the eye, day after day, and lied? Explain how you built this life with me, this beautiful, perfect life, while you were secretly sharing it with someone else? Explain the picture, Sarah. Explain Mark." Her shoulders slumped. She sank back onto the sofa, pulling her knees to her chest as if to shield herself. The tears began to fall, silent streams down her cheeks. "His name isn't Mark," she said, her voice barely audible. My breath hitched. "Then who is he?" She took a shaky breath, and for a moment, I thought she might actually tell me the truth.
But then she said, her voice laced with a weariness that was deeper than any I had heard from her before. He was someone I knew a long time ago. Before you." "Before me?" I scoffed, the disbelief a raw wound. "The picture looked recent, Sarah. You looked happy. You looked in love." The word felt like acid on my tongue. She shook her head, the movement slow and pained. It's a complicated situation. He needed my help." "Help?" I felt like I was losing my mind. What kind of help requires a secret storage unit and clandestine meetings? Were you giving him money? Was he blackmailing you? The paranoia was creeping in, painting every possibility in the darkest hues. She didn't answer, just buried her face in her knees. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by her ragged breathing and the frantic pounding of my own heart. I paced the living room, the familiar space now feeling alien and suffocating. Every object, every photograph, every piece of furniture felt like a testament to a shared history that was now revealed as a colossal deception. I stopped in front of our wedding photo on the mantelpiece, her radiant smile, my hopeful gaze. How could she have stood there, pledging her life to me, knowing this was going on, or about to go on? "So the P.O. box was for him too?" I asked, my voice low and dangerous. "Ordering things for him? Sending him things?" She nodded, a barely perceptible movement. "What kind of things?" My mind reeled. Was this some kind of affair? A secret lover she was supporting? Was she in some kind of danger? The possibilities were endless, and each one was more terrifying than the last. "Sarah, look at me. Tell me the truth. What is going on?" She finally lifted her head, her eyes a deep, sorrowful blue. "He's my half-brother." The words hit me with the force of a physical blow. Half-brother? My mind reeled. She had never mentioned a half-brother. Not once. "You have a half-brother?" I stammered, the confusion overwhelming the anger for a brief moment. She nodded again, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes, my mother. She had him before she met my father. She gave him up for adoption. I only found out a few years ago, when I was looking through some old family papers after she passed. He dragged me down. My head was spinning. This was completely unexpected. It was so far from what I'd imagined, what I'd been dreading, that it almost felt like a relief, a reprieve. Almost. But then the questions flooded back in. And this Mark, is that his name?" She hesitated, her gaze dropping again. "No, his name is Daniel, but he uses other names. He's troubled. He got into some bad situations. He needed a place to stay, a place to keep things. I was helping him. I didn't want you to worry. I didn't want you to be involved." "Didn't want me to worry?" I laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "Sarah, you have a secret life. You have a secret apartment." You're meeting a man you've kept secret from me for years. You think I wouldn't worry? You think I wouldn't freak out? The anger was returning, mixed with a new, unsettling fear. This wasn't a simple infidelity. This was something far more complex, far more entangled. I know, she whispered, her voice choked with tears. I handled it all wrong. I wanted to protect you, and him. He's my family, even if he is complicated. Complicated, I repeated, the word tasting like ash. So this Daniel, he's the man in the picture? She nodded. And you went to this storage unit. You met him there? Yes, she admitted, her voice barely audible. Sometimes it was safe, discreet. Safe and discreet for who, Sarah? I demanded, my voice rising again. For you to have your secret life? Or for him to avoid what? The law? His creditors? What kind of trouble is he in? I walked over to the side table and picked up the framed photograph. Sarah and Daniel, laughing. He looked ordinary, not menacing, but there was an intensity in his eyes, a rakish charm that made my stomach clench. He looks like he's got secrets of his own. She hugged her knees tighter. He does. He's made some mistakes. Bad ones. I was trying to help him get back on his feet. He needed a place to store some of his belongings, things he couldn't keep with him, and the P.O. box was for ordering some supplies he needed for a job. I didn't want to burden you with it. Burden me? I threw the photo back onto the table, the glass cracking slightly. Sarah, we're married. We're supposed to face burdens together. You think keeping this from me, this massive life-altering secret, was the way to protect me? You think I wouldn't find out? You think I wouldn't be hurt when I did? My voice was hoarse, raw with emotion. Guilt gnawed at me, a bitter counterpoint to the anger. Had I been too distant? Too caught up in my own work? Had my focus on building things, on tangible achievements, made me blind to the intangible cracks forming in our own foundation? I was scared, she confessed, her voice breaking. Scared of what you'd think, scared of how you'd react, scared of him getting into trouble and somehow it reflecting on us. He's not a good influence, and he's family. So you chose him over me? The accusation was out before I could stop it, and the look on her face told me I'd hit a nerve. Her head snapped up, her eyes blazing with a fire I hadn't seen in years. That's not fair. I love you. I love you more than anything. This has nothing to do with you. This is about my past, about my family, something you know nothing about. Something you made sure I know nothing about, I retorted, my own voice rising in frustration. You kept it hidden. You built a secret life, Sarah. A secret life that involved another man, a man who looks entirely too comfortable in your arms in that photograph.
The anger was a runaway train, barreling through my carefully constructed life. She stood up again, her posture straightening, a new, defiant energy radiating from her. He's my brother, and he's in trouble, and I was trying to help him without dragging you into it. Was that so wrong? Yes, I shouted. Yes, it was wrong, because you didn't trust me. You didn't think I could handle it. You didn't think I was strong enough to be your partner, your confidant. You made me feel like a stranger in my own home. The words were like daggers, and I saw them pierce her. She flinched, her eyes filling with fresh tears. That's not true, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I didn't want you to worry. I didn't want you to be upset. But I am upset, Sarah, I yelled, the dam finally breaking. I am devastated. I am betrayed. I thought we were a team. I thought we told each other everything. And now I find out you've been living a double life, meeting some secret brother, some guy named Daniel in a storage unit? I ran my hands through my hair, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps. The room seemed to spin. What else have you been hiding from me, Sarah? What other secrets are lurking in the shadows? She stood frozen, her face a mask of pain and regret. The confession I had desperately sought, the one that would explain everything, had only opened a Pandora's box of new questions and deeper wounds. The image of her in the photograph, her head on Daniel's shoulder, laughing, was seared into my mind. It wasn't just a picture of a sister and her brother. It was a picture of a woman sharing an intimacy, a closeness that I, her husband, had never witnessed. It was the look of someone who felt understood, supported, and cherished by someone else. And that someone else wasn't me. My gaze fell on the small, locked wooden box I had seen in the storage unit, the one I had been too afraid to touch. My heart hammered against my ribs. If this was the story Sarah was telling me, what was in that box? What other truths, what other betrayals lay hidden within its confines? Was this the beginning of the story, or just the tip of a much larger, darker iceberg? I looked at Sarah, her face pale and tear-streaked, and a chilling realization washed over me. This wasn't just about a secret brother. This felt like a carefully constructed narrative,
a convenient explanation designed to smooth over something far more profound, far more damaging. The raw pain in her eyes felt genuine, but so did the practiced ease with which she delivered the story. Was she telling me the whole truth, or just enough of it to make me stop digging? The possibility that I was being manipulated, even now, even in my moment of supposed revelation, sent a fresh wave of cold dread through me. The air crackled with unspoken accusations and a deafening silence of unanswered questions.
And that locked wooden box, still unseen, still unknown, felt like the key to a deeper abyss. The silence that followed her words was heavier than any I'd ever experienced. It wasn't just a lack of sound. It was the sound of trust being systematically dismantled, piece by agonizing piece. Her explanation, half-brother, hung in the air, a surreal counterpoint to the visceral images of infidelity I'd been grappling with moments before. It was so domestic, so ordinary in its own strange way, and that was what made it so utterly disorienting. A half-brother? I repeated, the words feeling foreign, absurd. My mind, so primed for betrayal, for the sting of another man's name on her lips, was struggling to reorient itself. It was like trying to solve a puzzle where half the pieces belonged to a completely different picture. You have a half-brother named Daniel? And you never mentioned him? She shook her head, her gaze fixed on the floor. No, he came into my life so unexpectedly. My mother kept it hidden. It was a painful part of her past and she never talked about it. After she died, going through her things, I found out. And then he found me. It was all very overwhelming. Her voice was a low murmur, a confession of her own past secrecy, but it did little to assuage the storm raging inside me. Overwhelming? I echoed, the word tasting like bile. And this overwhelming situation involved secret storage units, clandestine meetings, and a P.O. box he used? My anger, momentarily sidelined by sheer confusion, was beginning to resurface, tinged with a new kind of resentment. It wasn't just about his existence, but about how she'd chosen to handle it. You expected me to just accept this? That you were helping family when you'd kept him from me entirely? She finally looked up. Her blue eyes, now red-rimmed and swollen, met mine. There was a flicker of something in them. Pain, desperation, maybe even a hint of anger at my reaction. I wanted to protect you. I wanted to protect him. He's not a stable person. He's made terrible choices, and I was afraid if you knew, you'd judge him, or worse, that he'd somehow draw us into his problems. I thought I could handle it on my own. You thought you could handle it on your own? I laughed, a sharp, mirthless sound that echoed in the sudden stillness. Sarah, we're married. Our problems are our problems. You don't get to unilaterally decide what I can and can't handle. You don't get to build secret compartments in our life and expect me to be okay with it when they suddenly spring open. I gestured wildly around the room as if the very walls were complicit in her deception. What about that photograph? That wasn't just a sister and brother being supportive. You looked happy, intimate. You looked like you were sharing something I wasn't privy to. A flush crept up her neck. We were sharing something. We were sharing a moment of connection, of understanding.
He's had a rough life, and he's my blood. I couldn't just turn him away. And yes, sometimes I needed to compartmentalize, to keep things separate, because I knew you'd react like this. The accusation stung. React like what, Sarah? Like a husband who's just discovered his wife has a secret life and a secret family member she's been actively concealing? Like someone who's been lied to, not just about the existence of this brother, but about the methods you were using to help him? My voice was rising, the carefully constructed facade of calm crumbling under the weight of my emotions. Guilt, shame, and a gnawing sense of dread vied for dominance. I'd always prided myself on being a steady presence, a rock for Sarah. Now I felt like I was sinking. I just didn't want you to worry, she pleaded, her voice cracking. I saw how stressed you were with work. I didn't want to add to that. And Daniel, he's dangerous in his own way. Not violent necessarily, but volatile. I was afraid. Dangerous? The words sent a chill down my spine, a chilling echo of my initial suspicions. So is that why you had a secret apartment? Was that for him?
To keep him safe, or for you to meet him without me knowing? The implication hit me like a physical blow. The thought of her in that apartment, with him, in a space that was supposed to be ours, a shared sanctuary? She flinched, her eyes widening in alarm. No, God, no. The apartment, that was separate. That was a mistake. A mistake? My head was spinning. First a secret brother, now a secret apartment, and a mistake. The narrative was shifting, twisting, becoming more tangled and horrific with every spoken word. What kind of mistake, Sarah? Was it with him? Was it with Daniel? The question hung in the air, heavy with dread. She shook her head vehemently, tears streaming down her face now. No, it was another man. Someone I met. A lapse in judgment. A moment of weakness. It was a terrible, awful mistake. It lasted for a few weeks, and it was the worst decision of my life. I ended it. I swear, I ended it. That's why I was so frantic about the apartment. I didn't want you to find out about that. It was separate from Daniel. Completely separate. The air in the room felt thick, suffocating. 2 secrets. 2 betrayals. Or perhaps one enormous, sprawling betrayal masquerading as 2 separate, manageable incidents. The image of Sarah in that photograph, her arm casually draped over Daniel's shoulder, laughing, suddenly felt less like a sisterly connection and more like a comfortable intimacy. And the secret apartment, was that where this other man was? The thought of her in another man's embrace, in a place she'd kept from me, was a gut-wrenching agony. So I started, my voice a low, dangerous rumble. Let me get this straight. You have a secret half-brother who's troubled and dangerous. You've been secretly helping him with storage and P.O. boxes.
And on top of that, you've had a secret affair, a lapse in judgment that you were so desperate to hide, you rented a secret apartment? I felt a hysterical laugh bubbling up, a precursor to something far more primal. Sarah, what the hell have you been doing? While I was here, working, building our life, loving you, what were you doing? She sank back onto the sofa, burying her face in her hands, her body racked with sobs. I'm so sorry, she wept. I'm so sorry. I was drowning. I made terrible choices. I was scared, so scared of losing you, of losing everything. I just wanted to fix things, to keep it all from exploding. But I just made it worse. Worse? I stepped closer, my hands clenched into fists, the urge to shake her, to shake the truth out of her, warring with the devastating realization of what was unfolding. You think this is worse? Sarah, you have systematically dismantled our marriage, piece by piece, with every lie, every secret. You've created a narrative so convoluted it's almost laughable if it weren't so utterly soul-crushing. I looked around the room, at the framed pictures, the books on the shelves, the comfortable furniture, all remnants of a life that now felt like a carefully constructed lie. The apartment, I said, my voice regaining a chilling calm. Where is it? Is it still active? She shook her head, her voice muffled by her hands. No, I ended it. I gave it up, as soon as I realized, as soon as I knew it was a mistake. And the man? I pressed, my gaze fixed on her trembling form. The one you had the lapse in judgment with. Who was he? She didn't answer, just continued to cry. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken pain and the stench of betrayal. I walked over to the window, looking out at the darkening sky. The familiar suburban street, usually a symbol of comfort and security, now felt alien and threatening. Was he someone I know? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The thought was a new layer of horror. Her sobs intensified. Finally, she looked up, her face a mask of pure anguish. Yes, she choked out. He was. My blood ran cold. Who? The question was a desperate plea, a demand for the final crushing blow. She hesitated, her gaze flicking away, as if even now she couldn't bring herself to utter the name. Then, in a voice so faint I almost didn't hear it, she whispered, David Jen. David Jen. My colleague, my friend, the man I'd shared drinks with after work just last week,
commiserating about deadlines and office politics. The man who had often spoken of his own struggles with his demanding wife, his quiet desperation for a connection. The man I had unknowingly invited into my home, into my life, into our life. The world tilted. The room spun. My breath hitched, caught somewhere between my lungs and my throat. David. It couldn't be. It was too intimate, too close, too devastating.
The initial shock gave way to a blinding rage, a pure, unadulterated fury that consumed everything else. David? I repeated, the name a raw wound on my tongue. David Chen? My friend? You slept with David? The words were a guttural cry, torn from the depths of my soul. I felt a primal urge to shatter something, to lash out, to make the physical pain match the agony ripping through me. She looked up, her eyes wide with terror, her pleas lost in the roaring in my ears. It meant nothing. It was a stupid, meaningless mistake. I was drunk. I was miserable. It meant nothing? I cut her off, my voice shaking with the force of my rage. It meant nothing to you, Sarah, but it means everything to me. He's my friend. He's part of my world. You've not only destroyed our marriage, you've defiled it with someone I trusted, someone I considered family. I took a step towards her, my fists shaking, my body rigid with fury. How could you? How could you do this? To me? To us? To David? Tears streamed down her face, but her voice, though trembling, held a new note of defiance. He told me he loved me. He made me feel seen. You haven't seen me in years, John. You're always so focused on work, on building things, on your projects. You never asked me how I was, not really. You never saw how lonely I was. The accusation, though wrapped in her own culpability, landed like a punch to the gut. Was it true? Had I been so consumed by my own ambition, my own drive, that I had neglected the most important person in my life? The guilt, a familiar companion in this unfolding nightmare, intensified. But it didn't excuse anything. It didn't erase the images, the lies, the profound betrayal. Lonely? I scoffed, the word laced with bitter irony. So your solution to loneliness was to sleep with my colleague in a secret apartment? Sarah, you could have talked to me. You could have told me you were unhappy. You could have done anything but this. Anything that shattered my trust into a million irreparable pieces. I paced the room like a caged animal, my mind a whirlwind of accusations, regrets, and blinding pain. The secrets had unraveled, but they hadn't brought release. They had brought a deeper, more profound devastation. The brother, the affair, the lies, they were all pieces of a puzzle that painted a horrifying picture of a life I thought I knew, a wife I thought I loved, that was fundamentally broken. I stopped in front of the wedding photograph on the mantelpiece, the one I'd looked at earlier with such innocent hope, her radiant smile, my hopeful gaze. It was a lie, a performance, a cruel mockery of the vows we'd exchanged. I can't do this, I whispered, the fight draining out of me, replaced by an overwhelming sense of emptiness. I can't look at you. I can't look at this house. I can't breathe the same air as you anymore. She stood up, her face a pale, haunted mask. John, please, don't say that. We can fix this. We can go to therapy. We can fix this? I turned to her, my eyes burning with unshed tears, with a pain so deep it felt like a physical wound. How do you fix this, Sarah? How do you unlie? How do you unbetray? How do you unknow what I know now? You've taken everything I believed in, everything I loved, and you've turned it into ashes. I walked towards the front door, my hand reaching for the knob. My legs felt heavy, disconnected from my body. Each step was an act of sheer will. "Where are you going?" she asked, her voice a desperate plea. I didn't turn around. "I don't know," I said, my voice hollow. "Somewhere that doesn't smell like betrayal. Somewhere that doesn't remind me of everything I've lost." The click of the lock was the loudest sound in the world. The cold night air hit my face, a stark contrast to the stifling heat of the lies I'd just escaped. I got into my car, the familiar interior now feeling like a stranger's space. I started the engine, the rumble a small comfort in the vast silence of my own despair. As I pulled out of the driveway, I glanced back at the house, at the warm glow of the windows, a glow that now felt like a hollow imitation of a life that had long since died. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a small, dark corner remained, whispering questions about that locked wooden box from the storage unit. What other truths, still hidden, still unrevealed, waited to be unearthed? The thought was a chilling reminder that this, perhaps, was only the beginning of the unraveling. But for now, all I could do was drive, away from the wreckage of my life, into the uncertain, unforgiving dark.